New poll shows a big swing in the Ohio governor's race, but we're still nearly a year away from the vote. What does it mean? Our State House reporters will weigh in. But first, Chief Justice of the Ohio Supreme Court, as he prepares for his final year in office, his fight for judicial reform continues. The Chief Justice, our exclusive newsmaker, next on Capitol Square.
From Ohio's Channel 4 News, serving Ohio for more than a decade, this is Capitol Square from ONN.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Capitol Square. I'm Jim Heath. This week, we welcome Ohio Supreme Court Chief Justice Thomas Moyer. Chief Justice Moyer has served in that position since 1987 and will retire at the end of his current term coming up next December. Chief Justice, good to see you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here, Jim.
Let's, for the next few minutes, kind of talk generalities here. I'm not an attorney, so let me ask you some questions that I think might be questions that Ohioans may ask you if they had this opportunity. First thing, do you ever look at the newspaper or look at the watch the local news and see a news item and instinctively think in the back of your mind, yeah, I'm going to see that, I'm going to weigh in on that issue eventually because that's a hot button issue? I mean, do you ever look at news that way?
Sometimes, although our docket is so, it's like a river flowing through the court. It brings us new issues all the time. But I think it's just naturally when we read something or hear something that looks like it could be a good legal issue, we assume that maybe someday we'll have a chance to decide that issue.
Right. Let me give you a hypothetical, and strictly hypothetical here. Let's say a governor signs an executive order of some sort, and it's legally challenged right away, and it gets to you. When you're looking at that, do you ever think ahead statewide of the tsunami it may cause or the ripple it may cause if you change that decision? In other words, if you alter what's already been done, that it might create additional problems after the decision?
Judges are trained to take each issue as it comes before them and to not give it what we would call an advisory opinion. And so it's natural, obviously, for us, the seven of us, when we're in the Supreme Court, when we're discussing the issues and deliberating, to sometimes project what the effect may be. But we really believe it's the General Assembly that establishes the policy of the law. And so if there is an impact that was not intended by a court decision, the General Assembly can change the statute to correct, if that's the right term, what they did and what the court said. This is the application, this is the impact that this statute has on people when you apply it to facts in a case. And so unlike in some countries, courts in this country tend to not look ahead to see what the impact is or what the next issue may be.
Has there ever been a case where there has been that altering or that changing of some sort after the fact, where you've looked at that and gone, we didn't expect that?
There have been cases, yes, for sure. There have been cases in which the court simply did not realize that it would have the impact it does. And sometimes that's because the lawyers have not indicated to us what the impact of a decision will be. And that's where the amicus briefs, the so-called friend of court briefs, filed by an interest that is not a party in the case, will advise the court, this is the impact that this decision will have or different decision will have beyond what the parties in the case have told you.
Let me ask you, you've been on the court for a couple decades now. As you look back, has technology really made a big difference here? When we look at computers and the amount of information now that can almost instantaneously be made available to all parties. I mean, technology been huge? Technology
is affecting the court in two ways. We use technology. We have a very sophisticated, we think a very sophisticated website and ability for people who want to follow, track a case that's filed. They can easily do that. And so we've used technology to make courts more efficient, at trial courts all the way through the system. The other way in which technology is affecting the court is we're beginning now to see trickling in issues related to technology. And my prediction is that we will see more of those issues coming to the court.
As far as harassment cases, or
we had one recently about somebody who damaged a cell phone, and there was a legal impact on that. We have one pending. In fact, it's another issue of a cell phone issue, and we've had. Of course, we're going to have with the changes in the advances in technology, very interesting legal issues have been created by the advances in technology. Medical technology, for example, medical advances. They create legal issues. And so those issues are now coming to the courts.
Have the courts kept up with the changes internally of what technology is able to provide as far as computer advancements and that sort of thing?
Yes, most courts in Ohio, thanks to the General Assembly's provided funding and local funding also, but all courts in Ohio now are computerized to some extent, and there are very sophisticated, in some kinds, very sophisticated uses of technology, and so technology is very much a part of how we administer court dockets.
On that note, Ohio Supreme Court has cameras in the courtroom.
Yes.
Is that a good thing? Has that worked out?
I'm a strong believer in cameras in the courtroom, and when we moved to our current building 5 years ago, one of the things I said we were going to have is cameras in the courtroom that stream live all of our oral arguments, and of course they're archived, because people should be able to see how the justice system functions. I think every courtroom should be open to cameras now. And at the trial level, the trial judge has to have some control over the cameras, obviously. But at the appellate level, there's no reason not to stream live our oral arguments.
The court above you, the United States Supreme Court,
Yes.
I mean, you've heard the arguments for years now. I don't want to get you in trouble here, but if you want to weigh in, I'll give you the opportunity. Cameras there? We have C-SPAN in
Yes.
Congress, and
I think the U.S. Supreme Court, and they know I've spoken about this. In fact, at a forum where a couple of them were there, a couple of justices were there, I think the U.S. Supreme Court misses a wonderful opportunity to simply let people see the process. People would be so impressed to see the quality of the arguments that are made before the U.S. Supreme Court, the types of questions that are asked, and they would see the process. But, of course, so far, they're not allowed to do that.
Are prisons too crowded now? I mean, are prisoners getting out, serving a shorter period of time because we simply don't have the housing for them?
Well, our prison system is designed to hold far fewer prisoners than we have, certainly. And there is, as we know, there's activity in the General Assembly to review the types of prisoners that are in the state prisons, institutions, whether more nonviolent offenders should be not there as long or not there at all. And that's a very important policy issue that has to be decided by the General Assembly, because the prisons are, they're very overcrowded, and of course in some instances, federal courts will take over the control of a prison to make sure that they're meeting constitutional standards.
Is there really in the Constitution a mandatory retirement age for justices?
In the Ohio Constitution, if a judge has reached age 70, they cannot begin a new term. They can serve out their term, but they cannot begin a new term.
Is that not age discrimination?
Well, it's been tested, and the voters, it's a part of our Constitution, and so voters can, the Constitution can set those limits.
Well, we need to change that, because frankly, I think it's dumb.
Well, that was adopted in 1968, and 70 today is a lot different than it was in 1968, certainly.
Well, we can work on that. Last question before we take a break. If you had a choice, tennis or sailing, which one would it be?
Sailing.
Really?
Sailing.
That definitively?
Sailing.
All right, very good. Up next, we'll discuss the changes and how we choose judges in the state of Ohio. Our exclusive interview with the Chief Justice continues in just a moment.